Good evening, my Real News Media TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update. And in the news of this evening, chef charged with possession of prohibited weapon and ammunition. A 32-year-old chef from Richmond district in Manchester has been charged with possession of a prohibited weapon and unauthorized possession of ammunition following a police operation in the parish on Tuesday. The accused, Javon Nelson, otherwise called Fry, was taken into custody after officers from the Mandeville police reportedly saw him acting suspiciously during their patrol. According to reports, at about 11 a.m., law enforcement officers were conducting operations in the area when they noticed Nelson's behavior. Upon searching him, police discovered a Glock 19 pistol and a magazine containing 19 rounds of ammunition inside a bag slung across his shoulder. He was immediately arrested and has since been formally charged. The court date is being arranged for Nelson to answer to the charges. Man admits he was jealous as he pleads guilty to injuring his ex-girlfriend. A jilted ex-boyfriend admitted that he was just jealous as he pleaded guilty to attacking and injuring his former partner during a court appearance at the Kingston and the St. Andrew Parish Court on Tuesday. Sean Hankel made the admission to Senior Parish Judge Santia Burrell when he was called to answer to the charge of unlawful wounding. The prosecutors told the court that Hankel accosted the complainant, his ex-girlfriend, on the way home from church, demanding to know why she had left him and was avoiding him. In attempting to escape his grip, the woman pushed him and he attacked her. The attack resulted in a visit to the hospital, where she told the court that she had to have corrective surgery to repair the damage to her face. Appearing confused about when the breakup had occurred, Hankel pleaded guilty to the offense. He was warned to cease all contact and communication with the complainant. Hankel is scheduled to be sentenced on June 12, 2025. Brothers fined $20,000 each for disorderly conduct at NMIA. Two brothers who pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct at an airport were sentenced to pay a fine of $20,000 each or spend 30 days in prison when they appeared in the Kingston and the St. Andrew Parish Court on Tuesday. Alec and Rowan Nugent were answering to charges stemming from an incident that occurred at the Norman Manley International Airport recently. In their defense, they told the Senior Parish Judge Santia Burrell that they were trying to help their elderly grandmother board a flight when they were held by policemen. Alec told the court that their 84-year-old grandmother had been a bit late to catch her flight, and when they arrived at NMIA, he went inside to get a wheelchair and was told to carry her in. After seeing her off to her gate, he emerged to find his brother arguing with an employee who had clamped their vehicle. Rohan reportedly protested that he would not pay the fine, but Alec claimed he calmly indicated he would settle the bill and that his brother was the only one arguing. Police accounts, however, indicated that both men were observed by a policeman acting boisterously, so much so that the cop was forced to call for backup to calm the men. One of the men was quoted as saying, "Why would not go road make somebody shoot after uno?" Both were subsequently arrested. Despite claiming his brother was the aggressor in the incident, Alec pleaded guilty along with Rohan, and both the men were sentenced to pay a fine of $20,000 each or spend 30 days in prison. Western Kingston police on the hunt for alleged gunman. The Western Kingston police are searching for a man who eluded a police party in the division on Tuesday, reportedly leaving a loaded gun behind. The police say about 3:13 p.m. they responded to the sound of explosions along Ramsey Road in Denham Town. They say the suspect was spotted and he dropped the weapon and fled the scene. The police say they retrieved a Glock pistol affixed with a magazine along with 30 rounds of 9mm cartridges. Mario Dean suffered a skull fracture, strangulation before death, says a pathologist. The now retired forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy on Mario Dean told the Westmoreland Circuit Court today that Dean's injuries suggested he was held down, struck against the blunt surfaces, and strangled during the August 3, 2014 beating that led to his death. Dr. Murari Sarangi, who was testifying via Zoom, detailed Dean's extensive injuries, including a fractured skull, bleeding in the brain, and internal trauma to his mouth and throat. The cause of death, in summary, was a severe blunt force injury to the head, resulting in a broken skull bone and bleeding in the brain substance in association with manual strangulation of the neck, resulting in damage and bleeding in the neck structure and a lack of oxygen, Dr. Murari Sarangi said. 3 members of the police force are on trial: Corporal Elaine Stewart and the constables Juliana Cleavon and Marlon Grant over Dean's death. The medical doctor further noted that bruises consistent with finger marks were found on Dean's arm and the back of his neck. He added that Dean swallowed some of his own blood, which entered his lungs, causing choking that contributed to his death. There was no cross-examination from defense attorneys Martin Thomas and Dalton Reed. The trial will resume on March 31, when a witness from the Independent Commission of Investigations is expected to take the stand. Stewart, Cleavon, and Grant were charged with manslaughter, misconduct in a public office, and perverting the course of justice. Prosecutors alleged they were on duty at the Barnett Street lockup when Dean was beaten on August 3, 2014. Dean died in hospital 3 days later. Stewart is also accused of ordering the cell to be cleaned before Indicom investigators arrived. Rubio pledges a multi-pronged approach with Jamaica. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio just concluded a joint press conference with Jamaica's Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness after the two men met for a bilateral meeting at Jamaica House. Mr. Rubio outlined several areas of economic and security cooperation his government will be pursuing with Jamaica. One of the measures he promised was the facilitation of near-shore manufacturing opportunities for Jamaica as the U.S. seeks to facilitate the relocation of such enterprises from more distant locations back to the United States or close by in the region. That, he noted, was in keeping with Jamaica's own ambitions for the development of its logistics hub, which was reiterated by Prime Minister Holness in his opening remarks. Rubio also held out the prospect of Jamaica's manufacturing ventures being made less onerous through the availability of liquefied natural gas as a primary source of clean and affordable energy to drive those initiatives.
The ties, I would say, between the United States and Jamaica don't need to be explained. They're incredibly strong. And in particular, my home state of Florida, we were commenting close, 800,000 to 1 million Jamaican expatriates who call the United States home. And I asked, was that just in Florida? Because it's a very vibrant community that's contributed so much to the place that I've called home for so long. And so we have a shared history that's tied together by people. I also would say that some substantial percentage of Americans have traveled here at some point in their lives. And that also binds countries together. Nothing binds countries and cultures more closely together than people. And we certainly have that in common. And we want to continue to make sure that we build on that. We did touch on a couple of topics. The first is trade. The world has been closely followed. The president is in the midst of realigning American global trade policy, primarily to reset global trade in a way that's fair to the U.S. after 20 or 30 years of what we believe is unfairness, not when it comes to Jamaica, but broader. And from that will come real opportunities to create new alignments and new trade arrangements and new trade opportunities. And I believe Jamaica is one of those places that together we both stand to benefit. In particular, we discussed supply chains. And we ask ourselves, why, if so many of these products are destined for the North American market, why are so many of the productive capacities located halfway around the world? And there's a lot of different reasons why that's happened. But it makes all the sense in the world to see more productive capacity, more manufacturing, more industry relocated into our hemisphere. We certainly have the labor and the population and the desire to do so in our hemisphere. It's closer to the end markets. And so we want to pursue opportunities to make that possible. And clearly, I think Jamaica is one of those places that could benefit. And the Prime Minister has that vision for the country and the creation of not just jobs, but jobs that pay even better than the jobs that maybe some could find now. So it's an opportunity I think would be mutually beneficial. And we're going to actively seek and look for ways to make that possible. I also think there's extraordinary opportunities for investment. And we talked about it, whether it's particularly in energy. The United States is going to be producing a lot of liquefied natural gas, which is a very clean fuel that we have in abundance and that we seek to export. And it's also critical, by the way. You cannot have manufacturing without reliable and affordable energy. And so it's one of those things that I think potentially we could continue to partner along with other things, whether it's mining opportunities off the seabed. In essence, to utilize all of the resources of the country in a responsible way that protects your environment, that protects your natural beauty, but at the same time is generating income and opportunity of employment for the people. Ultimately, governments have two prime responsibilities: the safety and the prosperity of their people. And your Prime Minister and his government is very focused on those two priorities. We did talk about tourism because obviously it's a significant part of your economy, and we pledged we were going to go back and reevaluate the travel advisories as they currently stand to ensure that they do reflect the reality of the new numbers and what the numbers show, because you've made very impressive progress in your general numbers overall when it comes to the murder rate and so forth. But in particular, those travel advisories are designed to American travelers. And I think we need to analyze that and just ensure that the status we're currently in accurately reflects the status quo and takes into account the progress you've already made this year and made last year, year over year, which I think is one of the highest numbers in terms of reductions that we've seen of any country in the region. We have to talk about security, and I think that the Prime Minister has phrased it in a way that I think is very beneficial, and that is, he used the term global war on gangs. Maybe we'll find some other phraseology in the United States to describe it, but we're talking about the same problem. It's amazing, if you look across the region and really many parts of the world, how many of the threats we face in the world now that once came from a ideological terrorist organization or from a nation state are now coming from non-governmental criminal organizations who in some cases are more powerful than the governments in some of these countries. And we've confronted this issue. It's a challenge in Mexico. It's a challenge on the border between Venezuela and Colombia. It is the challenge in Haiti. And it's been a challenge here. And it's a multifaceted challenge. They are transnational for a number of reasons. One, as an example, is, and we've acknowledged this, in our conversations that lead back to my time in the United States Senate, how many of the guns and the weapons that are being used by gangs to commit acts of violence here in Jamaica are purchased in the United States and then shipped here. And we want to commit to doing more to stopping that flow at the same time as we do more to commit to increasing your capacity. That's the other thing I underline. What we're talking about here when we talk about American assistance is America helping Jamaica build its own capacity, its own ability to confront these challenges and solve these problems. Because security is a baseline for everything. And to that end, we have some good things to announce today here. We've the Jolt Fusion Center that is starting up again, and that's been even further strengthened. That's going to help address lottery scamming. We can announce this synthetics detection equipment for Jamaica's forensic labs. Another counter-gang recruitment program that we seek to launch as a result of our visit here today. And announce something that I think is really important, and that is software, intelligence software for the law enforcement here in Jamaica to combat gangs, things like night vision goggles as well, technology, and we look to do more. And on that end, let me touch on a topic that we talked about just a little bit. Well, I'll touch on one other topic, then I'll get to this final one. You mentioned upskilling and helping. How can we? It's a topic we hadn't touched on directly, extensively before. We talked about it today. We seek to go back and find ways that we can partner to create opportunities for skills training, so that if those companies, and we can attract those companies, if we can attract, whether it's a logistics center or manufacturing, to come to Jamaica, there's a workforce that's been equipped with the skills needed. Now, we face this challenge domestically as well. We need to do that ourselves, but there may be things that we can do in collaboration with one another. And this touches on the issue of aid, very controversial in the United States, but it's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here today, because it in many ways highlights exactly what our vision for aid moving forward is. The United States is not getting out of the aid business. We are going to be providing foreign aid. The difference is, we want to provide foreign aid in a way that is strategically aligned with our foreign policy priorities and the priorities of our host countries and our nation states that we're partners with. In essence, how that would work, how it has worked in the past, is USAID or some other entity would come into a country and say, this is what we think you need. And then they go out and hire an NGO that maybe are the ones that convinced them that that's what you need, and they give them a bunch of money and they come into the country and they do things. Some of these programs are fine, they're nice things. Other times, not so much. Nonetheless, that's how it used to be. How we want it to be in the future is that our embassies are involved with the host government, our hosts, our partners, and we ask them, what are your needs? And we provide assistance geared towards the needs of the nation states that are hosting us and that we're partnering with. At the end, our partner in Jamaica, our partner all over the world, is the government. It's the host governments who have a clear vision for the future. And to the extent that our foreign aid can be helpful, it is in furtherance of what the people of your country have elected you to carry out. Here, there are a lot of things. We've just described some of them. What should our foreign aid be geared towards? It should be geared towards looking for opportunities to increase skills training, looking for opportunities to attract investment and business and trade, and looking obviously for opportunities to expand on your own domestic intelligence capabilities. We are going to have foreign aid that is aligned to our foreign policy, and our foreign policy is going to be aligned to our mutual shared interests with the partners that we have all over the world. And I can tell you, Jamaica is an incredible partner to the United States. It's very cooperative on a number of fronts, and we will continue to work together, and we're going to work closer than we've ever worked before, because we are now going to have U.S. programs for foreign aid that are going to be aligned with the vision that you've elected your leaders to carry out for your country, and that benefits us both. And so I thank you for the opportunity to visit with you here today and talk about these things. I'm excited that we're going to be able to follow up on a lot of them and show real progress. The message that I've wanted to send in my travels, I've had to travel a couple of other places, but I've been to the hemisphere now twice, is very simple, and that is that the United States wants to ensure that when countries are cooperative and work with us and partner with us and constantly seek ways to engage us, that leads to positive results and outcomes. It's not, you can call it rewarding, but what it really means is it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. And we want countries in the world, and we want countries in the region to identify being close to the United States as something that is beneficial and helpful to develop, helpful to grow, and frankly helpful so that one day many countries can serve, and I think Jamaica is already doing this, as a model of what other countries would seek to emulate, whether it's on security, on trade, on investment, on skills acquisition and improvement. These are the things that we want America's relationship with our partners to look like. And I can think of no better friend in the Caribbean and frankly in the Western Hemisphere than Jamaica and your government, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you everyone for watching. See you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for another news update.